next guest will be on a call somewhere this weekend because he always is. Whether it's football, basketball, baseball, competitive eating, Little League World Series, bocce ball. If there is a game to be called, he will be there to do it for ESPN, the Ocho, ESPN2, Pac-12 Network. He has a mic and will travel, a headset too. Friend of the program, Roxy Bernstein. Hey, Rox.
Yes, Bill, you know me well. I'll whore myself out anytime.
You're not whoring yourself out. You're paying the bills, brother. That's how we do.
That's very true. That's very true, and excited to get the football season going. And let's face it, we need to pick me up after what the Wildcats did the other night.
I came out of Pac-12 Media Day saying I don't have a great vibe about Arizona. I wasn't quite sure what to make. There was just something about talking to Khalil Tate and talking to Kevin Sumlin. I was like, I don't know. Goodness gracious, Roxy. You shouldn't lose like that to a team on the islands that's just okay. That's just an okay Hawaii team. Who turned it over 6 times, by the way, and changed quarterbacks.
Yeah, it was the disappointing thing really for me was the start of the game, Bill, and how bad and disorganized Arizona looked at the start.
They looked lost.
Yeah, and if this is someone's first year, okay, I could buy it, right? Because it's a new program, new schemes, guys are getting used to different stuff. That's not the case this year. I mean, this is year 2. They've had 2 spring practices to go with him, and their second fall camp, and it was surprising. Now, Khalil Tate did show flashes, and there was some excitement there, but there left a lot to be desired from Arizona's perspective, and Hawaii kept trying to give them opportunities to take the game and run with it, and the Wildcats just couldn't do it. They couldn't. Yes, they forced the turnovers, but they shredded that defense. And guys like Schooler and Fields, that's young. That's supposed to be a decent defense with the guys they had coming back. And it really was disappointing to see that performance coming out. Now they have to sit on a bye, technically week 1, before they play NAU in week 2. But that is not a good start to the season, a good omen for this year for Arizona.
Well, and they've been talking about fixing the defense down there, Roxy, really since Mike Stoops was let go. Rich Rod seemed to talk about it every year. Sumlin did too. The defense, as you mentioned, looked lost early, and they're not super physical. Not that they have been super physical lately. I think offensively, you put up 38 points, you can feel okay about it. But, boy, defensively, again, you just wonder what it's going to take down in the desert because they've been talking about fixing that thing for about 5 or 6 years now.
And the one thing, if you heard from Kevin Sumlin or Marcel Yates leading up to the opening game, was that they made an emphasis to get bigger and stronger up front. Well, okay, in a game like this, it kind of gets nullified a little bit, right? Because Hawaii's playing the run and shoot. So you can't really get a gauge in the physicality, but they were struggling. And you know, they were struggling leaving the hotel. Did you hear that story where their police escort didn't show?
No.
And they were 45 minutes late getting to the stadium. And I'm not saying that's an excuse for no reason why they were off to such a slow start, disorganized at the start. But you know what it's like on game day. Everything's regimented. I think it messed with their psyche a little bit. But it's still no excuse to come out that flat to start a game and look that miserable.
Yeah, it was a bad look. Good look for Hawaii. I'm not sure how good they'll be, but it's a good little feather in the cap for the Mountain West Conference. I got to say, Rox, week 1 in the Pac-12 Conference has a ton of interesting matchups for me. Thursday night, Friday, and Saturday. We'll get to Utah BYU in a few minutes. I'm really intrigued by UCLA at Cincinnati. How much improvement? There's been a lot of hype about UCLA in year 2 with Chip Kelly, 19 starters back. Cincinnati's not bad. They're a good group of 5 team. They beat them by 2 touchdowns at the Rose Bowl last year. So I'm really curious to see how much improvement they make going on the road at Cincinnati in week 1.
I'm with you. And the thing is, Bill, I think UCLA will be better. But look at that schedule and how challenging it is. Not just, okay, this week opening with Cincinnati, but then you got San Diego State, who's always got a solid team. And you've also got Oklahoma. That's your non-conference schedule for Chip Kelly. And a challenging conference schedule. So, you know, even though they may be better, I don't know how many more wins that UCLA will have just because of how difficult the schedule is. And they went 3-9 last year, its first year, and they got off to that horrible start and kind of got some momentum going toward the end of the year. But they need to see Thomas Robinson really improve and make that jump to be the quarterback that UCLA is hoping he can become. and they got to keep Joshua Kelly healthy. Last year, he had a remarkable season, a breakout year after transferring from UC Davis. But with all the guys back and the experience they got last year, I'm not sure where those wins are going to come from for them. Can they get to 6-7 wins? I think it's going to be tough just because of how difficult the schedule gets for them. And if they are going to get there, they have to. I think they have to beat Cincinnati this upcoming weekend.
I don't disagree with you. I'm also interested to see Mel Tucker's debut. Colorado's a 13-point favorite in that neutral site game, but this was a team that lost 7 straight to end the year last year. They bring back Montez. They bring back maybe the most exciting player of the Pac-12 in Chenault. But that's a neutral site game and a coach's first game. CSU's trying to bounce back a bit this year, too. I'm very curious to see how much of the culture and mindset Mel Tucker's been able to change because it was bad at the end last year.
It really was, and I saw him a couple of times down that stretch when they were in the midst of that horrific stretch. And I think the game that I saw was it really started to disintegrate for them was that game against Oregon State. But they're ahead 31-3. And they ended up losing that game at home and homecoming, and they didn't have Chenault in that game. But you could just see the wheels coming off right there for Colorado, and it just spiraled out of control. And they looked lost by the end of the year. And I think the good thing for Mel Tucker, and it's similar to what I think Herm Edwards, Billy, inherited last year. We have a veteran quarterback, right? Last year, Herm had Manny Wilkins. Well, Mel Tucker's got Steven Montez. And also Herm inherited maybe the best receiver in the country with N'Keal Harry. Well, Colorado's got that too with Chenault. So they have some weapons. So it's not like he's coming into a situation where the cupboard is there. So I think that's a team to keep an eye on. If they really gravitate toward what Mel Tucker has been establishing there, and it appears they are, that could be an intriguing team in the South just because of some of the pieces that they have and changing the mindset and bringing in Mel Tucker to replace Coach Mack. And Mike McIntyre did a really good job. Look, he won the Pac-12 South, but it got away from him the last couple of years, and they needed some fresh blood and new energy. And I think that's what they're looking for with Mel Tucker.
Roxy Bernstein, our guest, Pac-12 Network broadcaster. Where are you going to be this week, by the way?
I am at ASU Thursday night, so I have the Sun Devils against Kent State on Thursday. Then I'm actually off Saturday because I have a family commitment. So my nephew, if I want to stay in the family, Bill, is being bar mitzvahed on Saturday. So it was either stay in the family or actually do the Cal game at home. And so I think I like my family enough that I'll decide to stay with them. So I had to bail out of a game on Saturday, unfortunately.
Very nice. Good guy there, that Roxy Bernstein, taking care of the nephew. Make sure the envelope that you give him is very thick. Maybe that money that you earn Thursday night you could put in that bar mitzvah envelope.
Yeah, and the grief I have to give my brother-in-law and my sister about, what I'm passing up to be here?
By the way, what you're passing up to do, every year it seems a 1AA pops up and gives a 1A trouble. Dan Hawkins has things turned around at UC Davis. Might they be able to give Cal some problems on Saturday?
I think they could. I think that's an interesting point you bring up because, first off, even though a lot of key players left UC Davis when Ron Gould got let go, and he's now the running backs coach at Stanford. But, for example, Keelan Doss was there, but Josh Kelly leaves and goes to UCLA. So there was some talent that was left for Dan Hawkins to step into. And I think they're a threat to go to the FCS playoffs this year. So Cal's got to be ready to play. And we still have a lot of questions about them offensively. Defensively, I think they're as good as there is, not just in the conference. When you look at the secondary that Cal has and linebacking core, there's some questions about them defensively up front. Their top 2 nose tackles are out for personal reasons. They're not with the team right now. So they've had to shift some pieces around up front. But their defense is still going to be really good. It's just the other side of the football. What's going to happen? Can they get playmakers to stretch the field? And that was a huge issue for them last year. We saw how awful their offense was at times. And the defense had to carry them. That can't happen again. They need to get better production offensively.
UC Davis, preseason number 5 in the FCS rankings that came out last week, coming off a 10-3 season. Not saying it'll happen, but we always see them. And It has happened. It's bitten Washington State a few times in recent years. There's no doubt about that. All right, give me a quick thought from you. I haven't really talked to you in a few weeks, maybe a month or so, on this Utah football team. Probably nobody out. Well, Oregon's got a lot of national hype, but within the conference, I think Utah is probably drawing the most attention right now. Definitively the best team in the South on paper, maybe the best team overall in the conference heading into the year. But they're not beginning things with the cupcake. They're beginning things with the rivalry game, Roxy, against BYU. On paper, they're more talented. But it's first games, as we saw, they could be sloppy from last weekend. So what's your read on Utah-BYU?
Well, I like the fact there's veteran pieces for Utah going down to Provo, right? You have the quarterback, you have the running back, stable of receivers. There's some question about the offensive line. And you look at the defensive side and how stacked they are, especially up front. But my opinion, Phil, hasn't changed. That I know Oregon's ranked higher in the initial AP poll, but to me, I'm with you. I think Utah's still the best team in the league. And I know they're only a couple slots behind Oregon in that poll. But if it was up to me, I would have had Utah as the first Pac-12 team ranked. And this game is huge. When you look at the non-conference schedule, and the next two opponents for Utah are not great, this is a game where they have an opportunity to make a statement. It's going to be on national television, and people will be able to see what this Utah team is about. And this is one of those games, like going into week one, all right, all eyes are on Oregon in that matchup with Auburn, right? That's a game the Pac-12 needs to get, especially in the wake of Hawaii knocking off Arizona.
Yep.
But this is also in a list of games that the conference, we just assume they're going to win, that they just can't, right? Utah has to win for the league, not just for Utah, because, people are looking at them as a possible contender to get into the playoff. But this is a game that they can't afford to slip up. There's a number of those games this weekend, and this is certainly one of them. This might be, outside of the Oregon game, the most important game.
No, I don't disagree. I think Stanford Northwestern's big for the conference, too, only because that's a Pac-10. Those are two teams that are fringe top 25s, but that's a Big Ten Pac-12 matchup. I'm curious about Oregon. 3 of their top 5 receivers are out due to injury, 6 to 8 weeks. They've got to go on the road. Auburn's ranked 16th. I wonder, we've been talking this offseason, who steps up to fill Dylan Mitchell's shoes. Well, Schooler and the 2 youngsters are out. Be interesting to see how that impacts the offense.
And I think it puts a lot on the plate of Nate Breland, the tight end, who has shown you his ability to catch passes. But this may, in the long run, help Oregon if they're able to win this game. In terms of Mario Cristobal has come in there and tried to insert his identity on this team, right? He is an old offensive lineman, and he wants to build through that. And they have maybe the best offensive line in the country. When you look at the guys in Lemieux and Throckmorton and Penei Sewell and Mormack and those guys up front, that's, I think, what could play into this game is if Oregon really relies on the run. I really think they need to be a run-dominated team, especially with that line. And with guys like Travis Dye running the football, this is a team that could really establish its identity this week. And this is what Mario Cristobal wants to do. He wants to beat you up physically at the line. And I think this could be an opportunity to make a statement for Oregon and what they're trying to accomplish this season.
Could Jeff Tedford pull an upset Saturday night, or did he lose too much in the offseason?
I do think he lost a lot. Can they win it? Yes, they can. But here's the perspective that I have, and this is a dangerous game. Look, we know Fresno State's a good team and how great of a coach Tedford is. But USC has been hearing this, Bill, all off season, right? How crappy their season was last year, winning just 5 games, not going to a bowl. And then they've been hearing, you've got a real trouble spot in game 1 going up against Fresno State and Jeff Tedford. So they've had to deal with this, Bill, all off season. And I think USC is chomping at the bit to get out there and get after them. And everybody knows what's going on with Clay Helton in a situation, and we'll see how his team responds coming up Saturday night.
As